make a start. Welcome everybody. The three of us are all from Sheffield Hallam University, and we're all also on the organising committee of this conference. And one quick tip, when you're organising a conference, don't also do a presentation, because the two things are very difficult to commit to equally. I hope you find this presentation interesting. It's about some work that we've been doing recently, the three of us together. Now, the three of us have quite different roles in the institution. I should say who I am. My name is Alison Purvis, and I'm a Head of Learning, Teaching and Assessment. Please take a seat. Head of Learning, Teaching and Assessment in one of our four faculties. The faculty is Health and Wellbeing. So my work is very much in that one faculty. I do work across the university in some aspect of my role, but my focus is on that faculty. Sue, do you want to say a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sue Beckingham, or Sue Becks on Twitter. I actually work in a faculty in the Department of Computing. So I teach in information systems, so that's digital media, digital marketing, professionalism and communication. But for quite a long time I've had an interest in social media as a research interest, and taken two master's degrees, one in communication and media and the second in technology enhanced learning, innovation and change. And both are focused around the topic of social media and social networks and that sort of thing. So that's kind of expressed and gone into lots of different directions, but it's kind of something I feel really passionate about now, so I explore it in lots of different ways.
Great, and Helen Roger?
Yes, so I'm Helen Roger, I'm Helen Roger. I work in the digital capability team, which is kind of a style team. We've sort of just emerged, just been through a restructure. And so in our team, we have sort of our overarching role, and we liaise closely with people like Sue and Ronick Allison. We started working together about 2 years ago, didn't we? And we started working together on social media guidance because it had cropped up, it had come from, particularly from Alison's faculty, and we got our heads together and we put together some students and some staff-facing guidance. And from there, we also then started some research, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I began to be asked by colleagues for guidance in whether we should use Facebook, could use Facebook, and what advice to give to students. Facebook wasn't the only tool, but it was a general kind of wariness and confusion around what guidance we should give about using such tools. So we worked together to create some guidance. But that was really only the start. It met an immediate need, but it didn't meet the needs that we saw that were emerging across the institution, which is about how do we get the best out of social media for learning and teaching. And we began to realise that there were a number of enablers and barriers that either helped or prevented staff engaging in social media for learning purposes. But really a lot of that was anecdotal and from our own experiences. So we wanted to get a more widespread view of what the reality was in the institution so we could target and support most effectively. So we've begun a whole series of research, and the first part was a survey that we carried out about a year ago. So the aim of the survey was to look at our institutional practice in social media and use that to inform our strategic direction and where we would best put support and academic development. Now, we did initially target the people that we knew would engage with us. So the first group of staff that we contacted was around 200 academics that had already been involved in our social media workshops. So we knew that we were speaking towards the converted, if you like. But we also put the link to the survey on our main intranet page, and we got additional responses through that as well. So we got 50 academic staff engaged in the survey, and we began to see some emerging trends about those enablers and barriers. And it certainly won't surprise you that the number one barrier or enabler to engaging with social media was time. That was the one thing that was quoted most frequently. We'll talk more about the details of that a little later. So we asked a number of questions, and we can't go into all the questions we asked here, but we are writing up the full details of the survey for a paper to be published as part of the proceedings of the conference. So hopefully you'll get to see the full details. We asked the people who responded to the survey why and what objective they used social media for. So the answers were, it was about developing a learning community, it was about collaborating with students, external collaboration or communication with those outside of the institution, gathering information, or using it as a method to share work. So they were the main reasons in which people were actually using it. The drivers for using it was that it's just what happens in the sector, and quite often that was discipline-based. So I don't mean the higher education sector, but the sector discipline-based that people were working within. Second one, otherwise not possible. So the technology afforded something different that traditional methods didn't allow. It was pedagogically driven. Whatever the technology was allowing, it was for pedagogical reasons. It was strategic, something the institution or the department saw as a strategic direction. It was driven by colleagues, people around the person that was using it. They'd come up with a good idea, they saw the benefits of it and shared that good practice and brought others on board. It was student driven, so the students were the ones engaging with the technology, engaging with social media, and then bringing the academics along with them. Or it was the strongest one, they could see the clear benefits of it. So it could be a complex number of reasons, but the benefits were the driver. So moving on to the barriers, I've mentioned time, management buy-in, having that support from the management so that they understood that they would be supported in doing it. General support, so that's training, development, having someone to go to ask how to use the tool, how to use social media, having colleagues that were confident, that kind of informal at-elbow type support, asking the person at the desk next to you, how do you do this? Have you tried this? How does it work? What sort of things have you found with your students and so on? And then their own confidence. Quite a lot of the respondents were the kind of people that just try things anyway. They're quite willing to take a bit of a risk, they're quite willing to give things a go, and when they see something new, oh, I could see maybe this will work in this way, I'm going to give it a go. And then other barriers are things like not having the kit, not having the software, students possibly not having the confidence, although in our latest research we're thinking about whether that is perception rather than a reality, and then funding. So funding for a variety of different reasons, not feeling that they could do something because it has cost implications.
No, not at all, because I haven't got very much thunder. So I've been hesitantly reading my notes and I'm not sure what I'm saying. So I was going to talk about three themes which started to come out of the research. Apologies if I'm not giving the full picture, if I'm kind of, my mind is kind of otherwise engaged, so that's my excuse. So these are three kind of rough themes that came out of observations that we made from our respondents. As to how or whether people were enabled or unenabled to use social media in their teaching. And one of these things was the tools themselves. In the survey, we did ask them whether or not, we asked about a range of tools. We asked about the big hitters, about Twitter, Facebook, about LinkedIn and so on. But we knew we weren't going to ask about all types of social media tools. So we named those ones. I think we also named Pinterest as well, with a view to sort of like covering that sort of like image curation, collaboration and so on. And we also asked about a category of tools like social bookmarking. Now, obviously, some of you will know hopefully most of you will know some social bookmarking tools, but we knew that generally out there that people are going to be less familiar with those. So some of those tools, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube I should say as well, they're part of almost our daily culture. Most of us will engage with them in our personal lives. And we asked them, I can't remember if you said this or not, we did ask them whether or not they use them in their personal life, their professional working lives and their teaching lives. And one of the surprising things that we found was that, and perhaps not surprising, but to see it written down, it was a bit of a, YouTube is virtually ubiquitously used in personal teaching and in professional arenas. And while we don't expect that people are using them as actual content creators, what they are doing is they are mining YouTube as a resource. And they're doing it because it's easy. It's part of their daily lives. It's, you know, it's part of the culture. It's part of the conversation. So it's dead easy to do. But when you look at a tool like social bookmarking tools, and we gave them Digo as an example, because we felt that was one of the more well-known ones. Hardly anybody knew what it was, and they were telling us, we don't know what this is. And yet, as educators, we would expect that tool to have that kind of approach to be much better known and better used by educators. But even though these were people who were confident and trying things out, we were kind of drawing a blank with that. And what I'm thinking about that, and we're sort of drawing the conclusion, is because they're not part of the kind of the social landscape. They're not part of popular culture. It's not as, let's face it, it's not as sexy as YouTube. It's not quite as easy to share, and our kids aren't doing it either. So I think that where a tool fits within culture does have a relevance as to how easily it's picked up and used. So if all of a sudden it was all about social bookmarking, we would expect people to go, oh well, we'll try that out. But because they don't quite understand social bookmarking, it needs to be explained to them. It's much more difficult for people to get a hand on. We asked about, with the survey, we designed it to try and find out a bit about people's general attitudes. We asked a question up front about their attitude to technology in general. Are you fazed by technology? If you have to do something new, what's your attitude? Do you just go for it and try stuff out anyway? Do you hold on, find out as much as you can before actually trying it, or do you go, well, I don't want anything to do with that? Obviously, the group of respondents we had, we did have a good split between people who were on board the social media train and those who weren't, who were a little bit more reticent. But we didn't find that the people who were reticent because they didn't. They were anti-social media and they were anti-technology, which is something we thought we might find. We found that they had good attitudes. They were thinking through. They had rationales for what they were and weren't using. And this kind of like overlaps a bit with the benefits. If people can see the benefits, then they're going for it. So they're much more likely to dive in and to try new things out. I just want to come back to my benefits page. What we did see was that the people were seeing the opportunities. So they were identifying those opportunities. This is the thing I need to achieve, and I think there might be that thing over there that can solve this problem for me. But we also saw that they were seeing the pedagogic connection. They were relating that to their teaching practice of the problem. And they were also seeing the benefit. If you can separate out the benefit from the opportunities, they were kind of going, I know that will really help things and make things happen. And I think that if you get that recipe of opportunities, in making the connection and the benefit, whether or not a tool is easy to use, that's the kind of, in my mind, that's the last step of the process. And if you get the initial recipe of the first three things right, along with other things like support and technology and everything, then the rest will follow, in theory. That's kind of all I've got to say. It's a little bit garbled, but we're much more eloquent than that. Sue?
Okay, so next steps really. So we've taken 2 focus groups and transcribed those. So we've got a large piece of work to evaluate. The next thing that we want to do is to actually take a few of those people out and interview them and sort of get down to the deep nitty-gritty. So we've got a lot of work still to follow, which of course we're going to write up. One of the things that we're really conscious of, obviously, that the group of people that we've managed to research is still quite a small pool. So there's a couple of things really that we'd want to do, and that one of them would be to get senior management involved and the buy-in to do like a really widespread, institution-wide, and everybody needs to contribute to that, which would be great. The other aspect is that, if you look to America, there are a number of fantastic, great big surveys that have been done on an annual basis. Maybe we need to be looking between institutions and sharing that information, because again, whatever we get out, it's only a snapshot of the people that actually participate. and clearly we want to get a broad picture. Yeah, crowdsourcing a toolbox. Yes, that's something that we start to put together lots of different how-to guides, and we've had workshops and we've done our elbow support. It would actually be nice again to gather things that people across the sector have been doing. Because we're creating resources, but we know there's a whole host of other things out there. So we mentioned right at the beginning about the social media guides.
Yes, I was just going to mention the Padlet, talk about the Padlet at the conference.
Yeah. So two things. The social media guides I was just going to mention there, we gave that a Creative Commons license, so all of those leaflets are on the website. They're free for other people to use. The other thing that we're doing at the conference, which will extend beyond here, there's some tweets gone out and we'll repeat those again, is a link to three main questions. So it was myths.
Yeah, what are the myths of social media?
Sharing guidance. So have you written guidance for your students? Have you got some things that really work? Have you got some activities that you've actually engaged with your students in to get them to talk about these topics that are quite sometimes thorny and issuey? And the other one is the challenges. So the tweets that have gone out take you to a Padlet. If people are not sure about Padlet, it's kind of like a virtual notice board. You just double click on the page and you can leave your comments. You can leave links on there. So hopefully we can continue that conversation, because there's a lot of experts in this room, and it'd be great if we could share it and bring it all together so that everybody can learn and benefit from it.
There's a link from the main website as well. There's the online SocMedHE 15 a menu item on the website that should take you to Padlet as well.
So you can go back to the main site. That's good. One of the things that that we've really sort of been conscious about is, and we've alluded to this sort of with the research, is that when people are using it personally, that's the starting point. So whether that's Facebook or in a professional context using LinkedIn, when people move into this professional use and become confident, then there's more chance, an increased chance of them actually engaging in it with learning and teaching, and also introducing that to their students. So just taking LinkedIn for example, there are many colleagues that have a LinkedIn profile but do nothing with it, which is a great shame, and there's a session this afternoon that we'll talk about that in more detail. But it's as people become confident in those forums, they then say, well actually I need to teach my students about this. So for example, in computing we have a module for first years called Professionalism and Communication. So we do all sorts of things about being professional and confidence communicators. One of those is getting ready to apply for placements. CVs is an obvious thing. Having a LinkedIn profile is absolutely crucial now. Absolutely crucial, because employers and recruiters are actually going to that space to headhunt, to look for, to use LinkedIn as a search engine to find graduates. So academics themselves need to be confident in that space to actually take that into the classroom and say, yeah, I'm a role model, have a look at my profile, I'm using this, I'm sharing the information, like the publications that I've made, presentations that I've done, or whatever other projects academics are involved in, that's on their LinkedIn profile. That's a great case study for the students to have a look at and learn from. So I think the key takeaways here is clearly we have a lot more questions than answers. We haven't finished this project. This is going to be a long ongoing thing, and I think if we can keep that conversation going and take that out to the community, that's going to help a lot more. And I guess just to finish off, we've got a couple of questions here, which you may want to comment on, and we'd be obviously really interested to hear your views. Are individuals within higher education who are non-users of social media at risk of being marginalised by the increasing digitisation of academia? To what extent is the digital identity and practical application of digital capabilities of educators significant potential and existing students? And a key one is what support is required to develop the digital capabilities of both staff and students? Because I think if we don't answer that one and grasp that nettle, then it's going to be a lot harder to move forward.